Dimp Digital presents Idle Game Chat.
Cool. Hello, Apps here from Dimp Digital. Welcome to Idle Game Chat bonus stage. It's time for our annual Dimp Digital Fantasy Gaming League draft episode. I'm going to quickly run you through the rules and then hand over to myself, where I spoke to both of the leaders and both of the competitors who are challenging for the Fantasy Gaming League Championship this year. First of all, quick rundown of the rules. So the aim of the game is for the participants to create a roster of 10 games that will score well with the critics in 2022. We use the aggregated score that is provided by opencritic.com. Whoever has the highest score at the end of the season is crowned the winner. There are no duplicate games allowed on competing rosters or teams, and there are two competitions that we run: the Fantasy Gaming League Championship and the Fantasy Gaming League Grand Prix. Now, the Grand Prix is a free-for-all where 6 competitors battle against each other to become the Grand Prix winner and then to be promoted into the following year's Fantasy Gaming League Championship. This is the proving ground where you can earn your place to fight for the big fish in the following year. And then we've got the FGL Championship. This is a battle between the previous year's Grand Prix winner and the reigning FGL champion, whoever that may be. If you win, you're declared champion and you will continue to defend that title until you are dethroned. Those that are unsuccessful are relegated back to the Grand Prix to prove their worth once again. New for 2022, there will also be a free transfer market. So any games that are cast out by other competitors will enter the free transfer market and they can be picked up by other competitors free of charge. So there'll be no penalty fee for games that are thrown away by other competitors and then brought into another team. The Logan rule is once again in effect, which means we do have a predetermined end date to the season. For 2022, it will end Friday the 9th of December at 5 p.m. Scores will be tallied and finalised at that point, and that will be it. So the two competitions themselves, first of all, we've got the Grand Prix, and this year the competitors are Newbie, which is Hogsworth Dave Salmon, the Fallen Hero Biff, Lashit Adkins, Pac-Man Adcock, our resident referee Logan, and the OG Hall. Their aim is to put together a team of 10 games, and as stated, the winner of the Grand Prix will get a shot at the championship next year. Now, the championship game is the big one. The belt is currently vacated, however. Biff, who was the champion, lost to a leadless team after the Webmaster Chappers walked away, so there was no FGL champion in 2021. Parky won the 2021 Grand Prix, so he was in line to challenge for the title. Hall, Adcock and Paper, aka the Coalition, was the team that defeated Biff after Chappers had left. Paper was the highest scorer in the Grand Prix, so he was promoted to the championship game to face Parky. Slightly different format for the championship game. This is a battle between Paper and Parky, but they can't do it alone. It's a little bit of a team effort. So they will pick 3 Grand Prix competitors to join their faction. 6 out of the 10 games that are required will be made up of picks that those faction members have made, so 2 each from the faction members. The leaders will then make 4 personal picks, and that will complete their team or their roster to get to 10 games. The leaders will have no idea what each potential faction member is going to pick and give them for their team, so it's not just a judgment of the games and the industry, but also the guys within Dimp Digital. Anyway, enough of the formalities. Let's get into the action. I'm going to hand over to myself as I spoke to Paper and Parky to do the Fantasy Gaming League draft for 2022. So here we are then, the Fantasy Gaming League draft for 2022. I'm now joined by the 2 competitors for this year's competition. First of all, I've got the former Dimp Digital Gaming League champion and the one-time Fantasy Gaming League Grand Prix winner, it's Paper. How's it going?
Oh, hello. I wasn't expecting to be introduced first, but thank you very much. It's going very well. I'm here having turned over a new leaf in life. 2021 was the year of reflection,
Okay.
and then 2022 is the year of pleasant paper. So here I am.
Well, I was going to say I wasn't expecting this tone. Normally, it's verbal barbs being thrown at me sometimes, but usually at the opponent. And this sounds like a very different paper to what people were treated to in 2020.
Yeah, I put out a survey monkey, asked the millions of paperites out there what went wrong, and they just said paper. Calm down. You need to reflect on life. And so
Wind
I
your
went
neck
away for a
in.
year. Wind your neck in. look back on your past, and I did. And what went so right? Why were the fans on your side on that first season? And then I've learned the lessons of my ways, and I'm back here, having gotten the light of the Dimp gods. Somehow has opened this door again for me. So yeah, I'm back here with a new attitude, a new paper.
Well, that's good to hear because we've got another pleasant, I would say, opponent that you'll be facing off again, fresh off winning the Fantasy Gaming League Grand Prix in 2021, which I think was only your second season, Parky. You can correct me, you know more than me. But as I said, we've got Mr. Parky joining us. How's it going?
Yeah, not bad, thank you. Not bad. Got the display cabinet ready for the trophy when come collect it.
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah, we haven't given you the
second
Grand Prix
season.
trophy yet, have we? So we'll organise that very shortly.
Yeah, second season. Yeah, it's learned some harsh lessons in the first one about subs and the Logan rule. But,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes, yes.
I think it's actually come to my benefit this season. Last season, so that's gone well.
Yeah, the Logan rule was introduced, and it's actually cost Logan a few times now in various different ways. Just for those that are wondering, the Logan rule this time will be implemented on the 9th of December at 5 p.m. So 9th of December. So it's the 10th last year. Basically, it's the second Friday. So that might fall to people's advantage. It might not. That's just a date I've picked out. I like to do it early-ish in December to give us a chance to rectify everything and get what we need sorted, but also to give those late games a slight opportunity. But that's coming in on the 9th of December, so just keep that in mind. Doesn't typically matter until later on, really, because once you get to the final transfers stage, that's when you're thinking about late doors games. So that's going to be that. Well, I wasn't expecting this pleasant kind of camaraderie between you two because, you know, opponents typically fight, scrap, and there's obviously a competitive nature to it. And I was going to kick things off by just mentioning that there might be a bit of needle because those who had listened to the 2021 quiz will know that Parky made his debut there and beat Paper, condemning him to another wooden spoon effort. So, you know, you said you're pleasant paper now, but is there not even a little bit of, you know, anger towards Parky for giving you that accolade again?
I've taken the whole gaming quiz with a new light, and I'm like the guy that volunteers at Park Run that walks to the back so that no one ever comes last, and that's now my role in the gaming quiz. So,
Okay.
If anything, you know, the way I look at it is that I'm there so Parky doesn't feel upset for coming last. So, you know, that's pleasant paper for you.
Yeah, doing a service so we get more people in for the next year and they don't walk away disappointed. That's certainly one way of doing it. Let's not mess around. Let's get into the coin toss. The first thing we're going to do. So this coin toss will decide who will pick either the first game or the first team member pick. So if you win the toss, you will be able to choose which one of those you want to go first in, and then the one you leave behind will go to your opponent. Parky, I would like you to choose what coin type we're going to use. So I've got a pound coin and a 5p. So it's quite a bit of difference in size, weight, and all that stuff, and flight in the air. Got a lot of things to consider. Which coin would you like me to use for this infamous toss?
I think we'll keep it consistent. Go with the same as 21 and go with the pound.
Go with the pound coin. So if I lose it again, more money's being lost here. Fair enough. Fair enough. Paper, heads or tails? Big decision.
Well, they always say tails never fouls, but you know, you've also got to serve your queen and your country. So I'm going to go for heads, and
heads.
Good old Lizzie's going to hopefully bring it home.
Is she on the head of every? She's the heads of every single coin, then.
The head of every single coin until she dies.
Then what happens?
Then Charles.
They're going to recall the coins, will they? Or they?
No, they'll still be in circulation, and then
Well, I might keep this. That might be worth something one day. Anyway, let's get on with it. So you're going with heads. I'm just going to flick it now. Hopefully, I don't drop it. Cool. That's a good old flick. That. It's tails. Don't trust the queen. Tails never fails has come in. So, Parky, you get to decide. Do you want the first game pick of the competition, or do you want the first team member pick? Strategy
First
here.
Team member pick, please.
Cool. So he's given up the chance of having the first actual game picked of his team. He's gone for the team members, maybe factoring that's going to make up more of his actual initial list than the others. Paper, just out of interest, what would you have picked if you had won that?
I probably would have done the same as Parky there. So great minds think alike. It's my take on it, and I would be interested in Parky's take on it. Was there are so many good games this year that actually it probably doesn't matter who's picking the first game, because there's probably a good 4 games that are going to be 90 plus. You would imagine on the top of everyone's lists.
It's exactly that. There's so many good games. Like usually when I'm doing the games list, there's 1 or 2 at the top that you think their first pick, like The Last of Us Part 2 kind of thing. This year, I've got 5 or 6 that if I get 3 or 4 of them, it's money in the bank.
Yeah. Excellent. Now I'm going to change the order up slightly. Usually I would ask for the team names at the very end, but I would like the team names to be, if you thought of one, maybe you haven't, maybe we'll have to do it at the end, but to be presented now so that I don't forget, basically, because several times I've got very close to forgetting that. So, Paper, you're going to be picking the first game, but what's your team name for this year?
Well, in previous years, I've gone for my name mixed in with retro games that I've played in the past.
Yep.
So I'm going to continue that trend, and I'm going to go for Papers Boys.
Papers Boys.
I mean, Positive Vibes Paper is available as well.
No, but it's not about me. It's about Papers Boys. You know, as in Paperboy the game. We all played that probably as a kid. Yes. But then it's a team full of boys. Papers Boys. There you go.
Wow. There we go. It's Parky trying to do the Chappers approach of trying to rename his opponent's team. Biff crumbled and gave his team name Team Adrian, which is one of the worst names in the history of the competition. And he accepted that, but didn't quite work there. Parky, what are you going for?
I'm going for #sensational.
#sensational. Now, if you come back, say either you win or you're returning a future year, is the hashtag going to be your thing? Is that what you've put down as a copy right now? Your team's always going to be hashtag
quite
something?
Possibly, yeah.
I think that's
quite
good.
Possibly, yeah.
Excellent. I like that. You both got your own philosophies on the names, and we can
get it trending.
That's it. Yeah, absolutely. Well,
that's what you got to do, isn't it? You got to have the trend for the marketing.
Yeah, bring in the big bucks.
Put it on a t-shirt.
Well, absolutely get those t-shirts out and other bits and pieces at one day when we get off our asses. Let's get into the draft itself then. Paper, you've been given the honour of choosing the first game. So this is, I always think this is slightly big pressure because you don't want to muck it up. You've got the world is your oyster at this point. You can pick any game that's scheduled to be released in the next 12 months or so. And we've had some stinkers in the past. I remember Hall picked Anthem one year and it ended up on like a 66 or something, which is one of the worst first picks ever. So you don't want to be doing that. Equally, you want to get some of the big guns in. So as you mentioned, there's lots to choose from, lots of high-ranking, high-profile games that are expected to do well. But what is going to be the number one game in the 2022 Fantasy Gaming League?
So it was between one of two games for me. Hence why I didn't mind, potentially, Parky picking that first game, because I've got nothing between these two games in my head. So I'm just going to go for one of them. I would assume Parky will go for the other, but stranger things have happened, as you said. So I'm going to go for God of War Ragnarok.
God of War Ragnarok, the sequel to the 2018 sensation, one of my personal games of the generation. Was waiting to see where that would fall, but that is the number one game for this year. So that's a strong pick. Sticking with Sony, it would appear, who, to be fair, have put out some great games on the PS4, looking to continue that trend with the PS5. Parky, I mean, I'm assuming that was somewhere on your list in the higher ranking areas, but disappointed to see that one go?
That was number one, joint first.
Yeah.
I'm guessing I'm going with whatever Paper had second as well, to be fair.
Well, let's not beat around the bush then. Let's complete that. What's going to be your
I
first
mean,
pick?
I hope so at this stage, to be fair. Horizon Forbidden West.
Sony locking out the front row. That is unbelievable. Yes, that's scheduled to come February. So even a delay, you'd think, would not knock that out of the year. Obviously, with God of War is a little bit
that's
of
the only thing that's separating them two. God of War, I think they're looking at September, and that's just dicey.
Yeah, that can get you in a spot of bother, but both Sony first-party games, both sequels to critically acclaimed games in the past. I personally love both those games. In fact, recently I just spent 70 hours going back through Horizon Zero Dawn, and it was just as good as the first time. I really did forget how good that was, and I am hoping that in February that delivers another great game for me to sit through and play. Paper, without revealing too much, was that one of the two that you kind of had in your mind to be going on the first front row of the grid?
That was exactly the front two that I had lined up. So it was, it's gone to how I sort of expected to go to start with.
Yeah, not a lot to separate them. Potentially when it's all said and done, both are sequels, so both maybe could suffer a little bit of a sequel syndrome. But from my perspective, I hope not, because as I said, they're some of my favourite games from the last generation. We now revert to Mr. Parky. So you've got the first team member pick. You won the toss. This was your choice. So this is where your strategy will be coming into its own. Who's going to be the first person that you're going to put on your team and hopefully deliver some great games for you?
Well, just want to voice my concern initially about the information regarding people missing deadlines.
Right, that's a very good reminder. I did say I'd reveal who those were, so you can strategize. We've not gone to the team part, so I feel like it's fair to do this. That is a good reminder. So essentially, the original draft order, because it's supposed to be based on your Grand Prix performance from the previous year. Losing captain goes to the back of the grid. Any new people go to the back of the grid unless there's a losing captain there, so they're going to be like fifth usually. So the original order was Logan, Adkins, Hall, Adcock, Salmon, Biff. That was the original order. That's how it should have panned out. They were all given a deadline, well over a week to do this. They've had, months of preparation potentially to get these lists ready. 4 out of the 6 competitors missed the deadline. So what that meant was that we would promote the 2 people who had reached the deadline. They would then move up to the front 2 sort of slots that were available to them. And then the last 4 people, it was a race against time for them. It was first come, first serve. Whoever submitted their late list first would get the next slot, second the next slot, etc., etc., etc. How that panned out was that the new Grand Prix draft order ended up being Mr. Salmon in first, because he met the deadline, and he was originally 5th. Mr. Biff in second, he was 6th, and he's now 2nd. He also met the deadline. And then the 4 other chumps were battling against each other to get their lists in sooner rather than later. Adkins got his in 3rd. Adcock got his in 4th. Logan got his in 5th. And Hall got his in 6th. So
wow.
A few people have been heavily punished there. Logan probably the worst, kind of going from 1st to 5th. That is a real body blow for him in the Grand Prix. That won't help things. And obviously Hall pegged back a couple of spaces as well to the back of the grid, which is just humiliation. Adcock stayed where he was going to stay anyway, and Adkins lost a spot. But Biff and Salmon, for just following basic protocols, were promoted into that and have profited. So with that information at hand, I'll be interested to see, perhaps at the end, whether that has changed how you were going to approach this. But Mr. Parky, armed with all the strategy, all the information, all the data, as Paper would say, who is going to be number 1 pick for you?
I am going to take Hall.
So despite Hall's potentially lack of interest or lack of just, I'm not say brain power, but just following basic bits and pieces, he's been installed. No concerns then that he ended up being last and perhaps his head's not been in the game lately?
No, I think he's got 1 or 2 games that didn't come out for him on his Grand Prix list that he's probably automatically picked for this year that I think would do quite well.
Okay.
And I think, like we've said all along, there's so many good games. I think you're going to do well to go wrong here.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mr. Hall's list actually is in the following order. You've got his 3rd pick. So, head was probably screwed on. You had God of War Ragnarok first, then had Horizon Forbidden West, and then his third game, you were bang on the money, Parky. This is one of his delayed games from last year. He's gone for Advance Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp.
Yeah.
So that was the one that
That's
was
what I expected.
revealed at E3, delayed after the transfer window closed, left him shortchanged, cock in hand he was left with, and he placed that highly up on number 3. So he's clearly expecting big things.
Yeah, he had it number 1 last year and it didn't come out. So I thought it's obviously you can't put it above Ragnarok or Horizon, but well happy with that.
Excellent. Paper, how do you feel about that?
It's not on my list, so I don't feel anything. I think I would say
Cocky Paper's back.
no. I was going to say Hall was going to be my number 1 pick as well. So
okay. Even though again you just found out he was behind the curve and all that, and
so he was the MVP last year for games picked. In terms of this
2 years running.
If you look at data, that's there. Equally so, it shows that he potentially didn't rush it, whereas some others may have rushed to get a list together to try and get their place pushed up. So he there's probably, you would hope there's a bit more thought gone into it. So I think it was a good pick by Parky there.
Yeah, I mean MVP gets the number 1 team pick. That seems only fair if you were to look at the data, as you said. Well, Paper, you've got to try and counter that. Who's going to be your first pick?
I am going to go for Tom Adkins, not Adcock.
Adkins, they call him the postman because he just tends to deliver. He does tend to deliver. He's got his head screwed on. He has underachieved, I think, in the Grand Prix now for nearly half a decade. So I don't know what he's doing, with his lists and whatnot. But generally, scoring-wise, up until last year, he'd never been on the losing team. Biff managed to squander that legendary status. It was like when Undertaker lost his streak to Brock. Like he had the streak going, did Adkins, and then he was on Biff's team, and it was the kiss of death. But he's been generally well placed and in a good spot to get people points on their team. You've actually got his first pick.
Oh,
so he didn't go for God of War. He didn't go for Horizon Forbidden West. He didn't go for Advance War 1 and 2 Reboot Camp, although it was on his list, but much lower down. What he has secured you, though, is what I feel like could be one of the big ones. It's Elden Ring.
Yeah, that's perfect.
From Software, high scoring. They are darlings within their actual fan base, and the critics tend to give these games to people that tend to love them. So this is a big one. It's going open world, far more expansive than their previous editions, and the feedback from the technical test has been positive. And again, nice early release date pegged in there in the latter half of February. So Paper, got to be pleased with that one.
It was number 3 on my list behind God of War and Horizon. So right. I've got the best, in my list of the game I wanted. So as you said, it's a part of the beloved sort of, it's not exactly the same, but the Bloodborne, there's the Souls, and there's a massive fan base there. And so as long as they do well or do right by the game, it will score well. The only thing I guess to worry about with this game is if they don't, but you've said testing's gone well, they will get just shat all over because it's just such a beloved sort of not franchise, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, so, the developers have definitely got so much goodwill built up that I think even with an average entry, they'd still be okay-ish. You'd just get high 80s off of it. So this is
my only concern with that one when I was reading about it was the delay was so they could make it a little bit less boring.
Right, yeah.
It was something along that was quite monotonous, and they've had to they made it too open world, and they need to just put more focus back in on it. So
yeah,
it could be up for another delay as well.
Yeah, I mean, again, fortunately, it's early enough in the year that you'd think it would still recover and make it, but there's always those bits and pieces to consider. And yeah, they are going down, the open world route, so that doesn't always come with, instant success. We've seen open worlds get smashed and knocked about because they're just simply monotonous. They're just people absolutely sick of them. So it'll be interesting to see how they approach it, and whether just the core gameplay that people love about those games, the challenge, the difficulty, is enough to fulfill them, and actually that giving it an open world type jobby gives it a bit more of an enriching experience. But interesting. So there's 4 good to great games potentially there as we move into the next round. Parky, who's going to be your second pick for your team?
Second pick is someone who I think picks games in a similar way that I do.
Yep.
They first picked Ace Combat 7, and I remember them getting some real shit.
They got dogs abuse for that.
They got, yeah. And I remember saying, I actually think that's going to do quite well. And I think it was like low 80s, and everyone was expecting it to tank. And I was like, yes, Biff.
Yes.
And I feel that I feel partly responsible for costing him last year with the Gran Turismo 7. So I'm going to take Biff.
Biff has been pretty much, I would have to look at the stats, but he's been last 2 picked almost every time. So for him to now be in the second round of picks and number 3 overall will boost his confidence. Like I said, he was having confidence issues earlier because of how badly last year went, and there was talks of him perhaps trying to walk away, which I won't allow. He's under contract, so absolutely not happening. But yeah, Biff has arrived, and he's going to give you his second highest picked games. This is number 2 on his list. So this is interesting. This is interesting considering what's already gone. You've got something that's going to come out, I can almost assure you. It's scheduled for early February. It's Sifu, Sifu.
Okay, yeah.
So, again, a bit like Ace Combat, outside the box. It's on people's lists, but not that high up on many of them. That was number 2 on his list, so he's seen something there that perhaps others haven't.
I'm guessing I'm getting that as well. When's the first transfer window?
Yes, March, yeah. So
he's already looking to get it out.
No, to be fair, again, that's another one that I looked at. That's the one where you get older every time you die, but you get more powerful.
That's it, yeah. I'm actually looking forward to seeing how it all pans out. It is, it's an interesting concept, and you don't get too many melee-focused sort of 3D fighting games. And that's like, it's not a fighting game, but it's like a brawler, like a bit of a throwback. So if that all comes together nicely, that could be very good indeed.
I was wondering how tactical people go, like the team captains. So Cyberpunk and Battlefield have made me think if I pick a game late doors, it's got less time to go down. So I was worried about these early releases, but we'll see how it goes.
Absolutely. Paper, any comment on not having Biff and then Sifu disappearing off of a potential option?
So I actually put Biff higher up in my list this year, so he wouldn't have been bottom 2 even if I was picking. Which is, I think that's pats on the back for the kid. He's doing well in his fitness, and he's doing well in his game picks recently. But it's Sifu was one of the games I looked at. I thought it was really interesting, and it was one of those games that if you start typing in games next year released, it pops up everywhere.
Yeah.
But then the more you look into it, the more it sort of falls down your list because there's other bigger AAA games coming out. Now that may mean that Sifu is actually just one of those hidden gems that Biff sort of stumbled upon, or it could mean that it is just going to be a bit of an average game. But we just don't know until it comes out. Which, as I said, I'm looking forward to seeing what it does. But it's one of the ones that it's a bit of a risk, I think.
Fair enough.
I'm hoping it's going to basically be the death loop of 2022 and go mid to high 80s.
Yeah. Which, to be honest, almost that is all you need because, Biff, as we all know, one of the main reasons he lost is because he didn't get 10 games out. And with Horizon, Advance Wars, and Sifu, you'd expect all of those to release without trouble. You're setting yourself up for a good
I agree
start.
with Paper, though. Like, I'm looking at my list, and I've had to scroll for Sifu.
Yeah.
There's 8 or 9 better games than that are definitely coming out, but it could be a curveball. It could be the new Yakuza. Who knows?
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. Well, Paper, who's going to be your number 2 team member and lodge you with your third game?
So I am going to go for the guy that never fails to pick Spreadsheet Simulator. and I'm hoping that he's going to pick that actually for me, to be honest, because it's I looking back at its history, it always scores to mid to high 80s, which in this game we will all take. So I'm going to pick that man Krog.
So Krog, he's had a bit of abuse in the past for this. Don't know why. Seems like people never give him the respect. He's been insanely close to win the Grand Prix, I think at least 2 times and maybe 3. I remember he lost to you, Paper, by 6 points once, which was very close. Not as close as when Parky beat him out by 1 point, which was in 2021. So he's definitely shown his credentials. We're talking about spreadsheet simulators. We're obviously talking about the infamous Football Manager, which do score well, so absolutely should be remembering that. You've got his number 2 pick. So,
okay.
Despite there being other games that have already been listed up to 5, you missed out on God of War Ragnarok for Krogan, so he obviously is looking at that. I know he's been playing the original, so maybe that's what's tipped him off to that. But his number 2 pick is something that, if it comes out, it's really just will not fail. It's the sequel to Breath of the Wild, or Breath of the Wild 2, however you want to describe it. He's gone for the Nintendo's absolute Colossus. We've not heard too much about it for a little while, but we know just based on the original to that it's looking like it could score very highly indeed. You have been earned with that, Paper. The next Zelda game and the sequel to Breath of the Wild, that is a juggernaut to potentially get.
Yeah, no, that's number 4 on my list. So apart from the one that Parky picked at the start, I'm sort of hitting home runs at the moment from my list. Doesn't mean they're going to score well, but as you said, it's one of the ones that it should just sit near the top of people's list, because if it does come out, you're in for a home run, as you said, or as I said. Or if it doesn't, we can just sub it out come September. But it's one of those ones that it's getting closer. There's a lot of hype building around it, some rumors going around. It's saying 2022 if you type in release date on the old Googles.
Yep.
So maybe it'll be hit with a delay, maybe not, but it's a risk worth taking for that game.
Parky, any comment on Breath of the Wild now being taken?
I'm okay with it. I had it quite obviously, if it comes out, it's massive and it's possibly a game winner, but I can't see it coming out.
Yeah,
I've literally got it marked as my list as too risky.
Cool. I mean, that's kind of where I fall on it. Like, if it does come out, it's 90s easy. They just even a bad Zelda game will get that. Yeah,
it's done. It's like 90 odds.
Nintendo do have a habit of dropping things in the middle of the year and coming out before Christmas, and this strikes me as that's what they'll either do that, or if they don't do it by the middle of the year, it's not coming out.
No. Well, Juggernauts are in. We now move to the final round of team picks for the actual combatants that are going to join your team. You've only got 2 options, Parky. You've condemned, well, the pair of you have done this because it's a team effort from your perspective, but you've condemned 2 men to the last round of picks, which will damage their confidence, no doubt. And you now have the unfortunate choice of choosing your 3rd member, but also condemning someone to the very last pick of the competition, which is always a black eye. So you will carry that guilt around with you. You're making a choice of 2 here. Who are you going to go for, and who are you going to condemn to the very last pick?
It's difficult. So obviously salmon's the complete unknown quantity.
Yeah.
And the thing is with Adcock's picks, they're like I think I spoke about it before. They're the games that I've never heard of that suddenly rock up with 85, 86. But I don't think this is the year of those games. I think this is the year of AAAs. And I think someone who's just going to sit down and pick just a standard 10. So I'm going to go for Salmon.
Cool. Condemns Adcock, the quiz winner, to the very last pick of the competition. Is that a bit of bitterness creeping in on Parky's perspective? I'll let the audience decide whether that is
I know
the
what
case.
it's like to be getting picked last. It's okay. I'm not going to do that to Salmon.
No, so Salmon on his first run through avoids the black eye, which is good for him. He's given you. When you talked about getting a standard list in, I don't know if this is the standard list, in all honesty. but I'll let you decide that. You've got his first pick, unbelievably.
Not unbelievably, I've still got 3 or 4 games that are going to score high 80s, so it depends what it is. Your laughing's not helping.
No, sorry. No, I actually don't think this is bad. I mean, that's my view on this particular game. But he's given you Total War, Warhammer 3.
Sure.
That'll be... they don't usually bollock up the Total War franchise. Not these numbered ones, anyway. I know there was a Free Kingdom spin-off that didn't do too well. But Warhammer, that's getting hot again. We've got Space Marine potentially coming next year, or a year or two. Total War's a well-oiled franchise at this point. Any reaction to that, Mr. Parky?
One that I did look at, but picked other ones that I knew more about. So clearly the whole PC side of it, knows a lot more about that than I do. So trust the instincts.
Trust the instincts, indeed. Paper, any response to that? Even because you've lost out on picking Salmon, so would you have taken the same approach, or would you have been backing Pac-Man, who you've now got?
I actually had Pac-Man ahead of Salmon in my list, purely on the basis that I knew what he's done previously, and as Parky said, he's generally picked pretty well for his top 2, which is what you look at. So and there was no dig on like Salmon. We've not seen how he scores, but Parky, I think, came last one year, and then we all cackled at him picking.
Did we?
Was
no Animal Crossing?
Animal Crossing.
Oh yeah,
and end up being one of the highest scoring games of the year. So there is something to be said for new blood coming into the Dimp draft.
Yeah, I'm not getting out of Warhammer either. That's February. So
but I guess with Warhammer, so Warhammer, to give you an indication, was 6th on my list. It will score mid to high 80s easily. Yeah. If you look at the previous Total War Warhammer games, they score well. It's a niche basis of the Total War fans and the Warhammer fans, and they all love it. And they've delayed it to make it even better, and people were really excited for it. I brought it into my draft last year, but then it got delayed. So I actually think that's a solid pick, and I'm a bit gutted to see that go, because I knew if no one had picked, I thought that one might go under the radar of people, and I could have picked that at my number 7 pick. So I'm a bit gutted it's gone. So Salmon, your captain doesn't appreciate it. I do.
It's on Game Pass as well, so I don't know if that gives it a slight advantage in terms of people more forgiving if it is no good. But I think
it might hurt it though in terms of reviews.
Absolutely,
more people review it, because usually you have to pay for these games, and therefore it's the niche people playing it.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see who they give it to. Each of the review outlets, whether it is an experienced Total War person, which can work against it. So if it doesn't live up to what is expected, it can work against it. So that's absolutely possible. Let's move over then. Paper, you've got Mr. Adcock, not by choice, although you said you would have picked him anyway. So all's well that ends well. You've got his 3rd pick, so not that low down the list, so still pretty high. This one has been delayed out of 2021 previously, so expecting it to arrive very early in 2022. He's given you Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Extraction.
Okay, I think that's a fair pick. It wasn't.
It'll be out in January, so you'll soon know whether that's an accurate.
I already know because I played the beta.
Oh, inside information.
That ain't on my list.
It's quite low on my list, but it's one of those big title names that I look at the Tom Clancy Rainbow Six previous scorers, and they're all around that mid 70 range. So, and I don't expect it to get much higher than that. So, though a mid 70, we take it.
It's coming out.
It's definitely coming out. So it's one of those ones that it could surprise us. I've not played the beta, so maybe Park has a better insight than me. But it wasn't. It probably wouldn't have got picked on my list, but it's also was on my list, so it wasn't something I hadn't looked at.
Fair enough. Lukewarm reception there, and perhaps that's evidence as to why last pick has been installed for poor old Adcock. He did have Elden Ring as his number 1 pick, and then Horizon as his number 2 pick. So had he been higher up on your list, you would have bagged them, but you've ended up with his third pick, which was that. We go back to Parky and we go for Hall for his second game. He is giving you... These are not risks these days. I think OpenCritic have been fairly consistent with putting out new score pages for expansions and big DLC moments. And this is a big expansion stroke piece of DLC for one of the biggest games out there. Hall has given you, Parky, Destiny 2, The Witch Queen. We know it's coming. This is supposed to wrap up the dark and light storyline that's been running since Destiny started all those years ago. Immediate response to landing that.
Absolute disaster.
Crikey.
I don't think it's going to do well.
Oh dear.
I don't think Forsaken's scored that well.
82? Not terrible.
So if you look back at their...
Yeah. 82's Forsaken. Shadowkeep, 75s. This is the thing with their stuff. What's the other one they've got on here? I think they've got Warmind. Warmind 62. That was the stinker one. I remember that.
I'll take it back then. I must have looked at a different review of Destiny, because the ones I was looking at were like
Curse of Osiris, 56.
Yeah, that was trash.
It's all over the place, mate. There is literally no way of... I mean, again, it's coming. You won't be subbing this out. It'll be, if all goes well, you're going to get a score from that. But I agree, there is always a concern with Bungie because they seem to just run so hot and cold.
Yeah, I mean, Forsaken was quite good, and The Witcher Queen hopefully is going to be better. So low to mid 80s would be absolutely fine.
Paper anywhere to be seen on your list? Any Destiny love?
No.
It's actually next to Rainbow Six Extraction on my list. It was one of the ones that is on the list, but it's quite far down. It's just too hot and cold.
Desperate measures, if that's appearing on lists.
Just to let you know where we're at here, Apps. 3 of my top 5 games haven't been picked yet.
Wow.
This
could get very interesting as we turn into the personal picks for sure. But yeah, so Parky not perhaps overly enamoured with what his team's producing this second half, but
I trust the process on Warhammer.
Yes.
And Hall knows Destiny, so
does he? He don't play games anymore, I've been told.
He's going for the crown for Destiny King.
Well, if Dave's got that, he ain't getting that off him. Lappers has got that wrapped up as far as I'm concerned. Mr. Paper, we go back to you. Adkins, who's going to be your lieutenant, whatever you want to call him. He's given you, maybe not really overly concerning. I think there still will be a page for this since it's coming to PC and it's a big kind of moment. But he's given you Uncharted Legacy of Thieves.
There we go. Yep.
So that was number 5 on his list. Response to that, Paper? Uncharted, they're not releasing a new one, but they're repackaging the 2 latest ones, chucking it out on PC, hopefully with all the bells and whistles, and then it's getting a re-release on PS5 as well. Lovely 60 FPS.
We know what, it started off quite high on my list, and it sort of, when I was just looking at things, it sort of wormed its way down a little bit. Not basically on the fact that I wasn't sure whether it'd get its own page. You would hope it would. It's not there at the moment on OpenCritic, that is.
Yeah. I'm sure it will.
But I'm sure. I think if it's going to be a good scorer. It's one of those uncertainty ones whether it gets its own page. But I think if it comes out, people love those games. As long as they just, they don't change anything about it, but just really refresh it, people will love it. So it should be an 80 scorer.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing a little bit of strangeness with it. It's coming out January 28th for PS5, which is fine. I will be upgrading to that for sure because I've been waiting to play Uncharted 4 at 60 FPS forever, and they're doing like an upgrade path. Be great if it was free, Jim Ryan, but you're going to fucking penny pinch me and charge me a tenner. I will pay it, so the joke's on me. But no announced release date for the PC. So that might be coming later. So what you might see, Paper, is a wave of scores coming late January. Then when the PC port arrives, a few more sort of ticking it a point either side, depending on how good or bad that port is. But again, another early release. So, I mean, this I'm just looking at this. This could all be wrapped up by March. You might not even have...
That was in my top 5. I think that would be better than Witcher Queen.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting. I don't think it was even on Hall's list.
So Adkins has picked well, you know. I would say, out of the first two picks there, I think I come off slightly better.
Cool.
If,
Parky,
if,
you
if-
let him say that about poor old Hall.
I think, well, I got
He's been
Elden Ring
positive
and
vibes paper so
Uncharted.
far. Hall's involved, and now the dagger's out.
No, I'm just saying. I'm just giving Adkins the pat on the back. It's nothing to do with Hall. I would have been more than happy with these picks. I'm sure Parky is, but it's I'm just saying in comparison to the list I had to start with, the games
The more aligned to yours.
more list, which is what I want as a captain. It's not mean that they're not going to score higher. Halls may end up scoring higher, but it's working out to how I wanted my team to go. So what more can I say?
Absolutely. Parky, we move on to Biff, number 2 pick for you and your team. He is giving you another early release, another February release date. Good Christ. You've got, this was number 3 on his list, so he thinks highly of this. Dying Light 2, Stay Human.
Absolutely. I think I've picked that 2 years in a row, and it's been delayed every time.
Yeah.
So that is a great pick from Biff.
Yeah, I love and adore the first one. I thought the first one was great. Definitely wasn't, from the technical perspective, was a bit of a stinker, but I really enjoyed that. I liked what I saw of Dying Light Stay Human, or Dying Light 2, sorry, when they did like a bit of a deep dive, and it wasn't even last year, I think it was the year before, E3, showing how the world will change based on your decisions. It's got co-op elements to it as well, so you can just hop in and play with your friends. Me and Adkins and Biff actually played a fair amount of that together. I'm personally quite hyped for that. I'm not so hyped that it's coming in February, because we've got Elden Ring and Horizon and Sifu during that month, all stuff I've got eyes on, and I'm very disciplined nowadays that I only want to play one game at a time with a flavour of multiplayer, so that's going to be a tough month for me, but at some point I anticipate getting to Dying Light 2, because I expect it to perform well, be technically proficient, and give you a nice score. But yeah, anything further to add?
The first one done so well, and the only worry is sometimes you realise you're going to be like a Left 4 Dead and everyone's a bit bored of it. But I think it's been so long since a really, really kind of good type of that game's come out. Mm-hmm. And I was having a look at the little parkour elements of it as well that look quite good.
Yeah. It's
so
certainly
I think it's going to do well. It's a little bit niche, but I think it'll do well.
Yeah. What I would say, and this is not to piss on your cornflakes, is the original is sitting there on a 74, but fan reaction was much higher than the critics. So I don't know if it's one of those things. Sometimes this sort of stuff happens where the critics kind of catch up later on, and then the sequel they like. They don't like the first one, but the sequel comes along and they prefer that because it's had so much positive, coverage over the years. They're still doing DLC for fucking Dying Light to this day. And it does look like an uptick. Does look good. I'm personally hyped for it. Paper, anywhere to be seen on your lists or on your rounds?
It sits on my list with Destiny 2 and Rainbow Six. So gives you some
the emergency list.
Yeah, it was one of those ones. It's a big name. It's going to score. Lots of people are going to play it, and it's going to come out early on. But as you said, Dying Light scored 74. It doesn't really matter if the fans like it. It's really what those critics say. And if it comes out in a bit of a buggy mess like it did in number 1, it's not going to score well, and people are going to get hammered again. So it's one of the ones. It might, as I said, if they bring it out and it's all perfect and stuff like that, it'll probably score low 80s, I would imagine. But if there is some buggy messes in there, it will drop to mid 70s, I would imagine.
Yeah, that is always a concern. I mean, it has been delayed.
I think they've delayed it so much that if it came out as a buggy mess, then
they did with Cyberpunk. Remember,
they have got potential to technically drop the ball there. I hope they don't. I hope that what Parky's saying comes true, and that it's delayed that much so that it's polished up nicely. But we do have precedent set where some stuff is delayed, then they're like, right, we just need to just get this out now. And then we end up with Cyberpunk.
Yeah, but Halo looked like a mess, and then they delayed it, and it scored really well. So, but then that's Halo, isn't it?
Yeah, that's got a bit of shielding going on. Well, we go back to you, Paper, for your number 2 man. Well, number 3 technically, because you're number 1. But Logan is there. Now, he was after the spreadsheets, That's what he's there for. He's there to deliver a spreadsheet simulator to a team. He's been doing that for the last couple of years, just dropping on a Football Manager yearly release, scoring a mid to high 80s and walking away from it. He hasn't done that this time.
Bloody hell, Grog.
He has absolutely perhaps put more effort in this year, who knows, but he's definitely gone down the route of a more of a gamified traditional list. And what you've ended up with is what I think is one of the biggest risks of the entire tournament.
Oh, please be, please be. I'm hoping it's my biggest risk, and I was going to pick it. So
Is it? Yeah, I think I might know what it is.
You'll be finding out very shortly because it's coming in January. It's Pokemon Legends Arceus.
Ooh.
That's what you've got. Due out in a matter of weeks. This is... The idea of it is exactly what I've been wanting a Pokemon game to be for decades.
They've gone back
now.
to open world, haven't they?
Yes, that's what they...
Which is what people want to play.
Absolutely. What I will say is the trailers, it looks like a 3DS game. The graphics are appalling. So I don't know if that's going to hurt it. I don't know if they know what they're doing, but...
You don't buy Pokemon for the graphics, though, do you?
No, that's true, but I think sometimes people get the ump with... The trouble is that Switch ain't up to it. That's as simple as that. You are dealing with a compromised power machine, but paper... Pokemon Legends Arceus, Game Freak, they released or Nintendo released a remaster / remake of Diamond and Pearl, which disappointed. Sword and Shield, in my eyes, disappointed score-wise. I feel like this is not make or break because it's so popular. It'll always do well regardless of scores, but this is a big moment for the Pokemon franchise. Can they get it right with Pokemon Legends Arceus?
Is one of those ones that I'm not sad to sit on my list, but I'm also wouldn't be sad to not sit on my list. It's one of those that it's just. I think I got burnt by Pokemon last year.
Yeah.
If Pokemon hadn't had scored in its normal 80s, I would have potentially won the Grand Prix. So
true.
It was my lowest scoring game. So I think maybe I was a bit burnt. So maybe I was looking at it with my non-rose tinted glasses and put it a bit lower. It sits about middle of my table of games that I've got. So as I said, I'm not disappointed. It sits next actually at Uncharted in mine. So it's just one of those ones. I'm not too sure which way it's going to go, and I would love to be proven wrong. I just haven't been hearing much buzz about it. That's all. It just usually when these games are going to come out and really blow people away, you start hearing buzz and things going on around it, and it just really haven't with this Pokemon game. You got more buzz around Pearl and whatever that shit was that scored last year. So, but we'll see. We will see.
Parky, sad to see that one snapped up, or not too bothered?
Not even on the list, I'm afraid.
It's
like Paper said. It's years ago you could trust the Nintendo bump and you can trust the Pokemon kind of scores, and now it just all seems to have gone out the window a bit.
Yeah, I mean even Sword and Shield, which came out 2019. I mean, it scored an 80. That's not bad. But in my head, I had that Pokemon was down for like high 80s, kicking on for 90s, given the popularity of that. But they've been playing it safe for too long, and this certainly doesn't look like they're doing that. So it's one of those leaps of faith everyone's going to have, and it's whether they can execute on it. And I want to play this if it's good. If it's toot, I'll leave it, but we will see in a matter of weeks. Again, another score that's going to be coming in thick and fast, and we'll be finding out how that's fared in a couple of weeks' time.
Gonna have to start picking some late releases here, so we've got something to do for the second half.
I know. We'll try. Have to shut down for a few weeks, won't we? The season might be over. We'll go back to you, Parky. Your final man on your team, Mr. Salmon. He has given you. I'm interested in this. Stalker 2. Now,
okay.
What I will say is I'm interested. I thought this showed off really well at E3 when they showed like the sort of gameplay bits and pieces they spliced together. I like the look of this. Not the trouble because they have backpedaled, but they have put a target on their backs by announcing they were going to do some sort of NFT inclusion into the game. The gaming press went mental. Fans went mental. They have since said they're not going to do that, so that's kind of gone. But I do feel like sometimes that sets them up for a bit of a kick-in sometimes. Coming to Game Pass day and date as well, so you can take that as a good sign or a bad sign. Any response to what you think Stalker 2 might be doing for you and your team?
Again, it's one of those that I looked at but just didn't feel comfortable putting on my list because I just don't know enough about it.
Yeah. It's
So
been a long time
again,
since they
I'm
released a
just
Stalker game. Like, long time.
yeah. So hopefully, Salmon comes in clutch again.
There you go. Paper, was that anywhere to be seen on your list? My assumption is it wasn't, but what do I know?
I took the same approach as Parky with this one. I looked at it. I tried to do some googling of Stalker 1 or whatever it's Stalker. Was nowhere to be found on OpenCritic. And I was it's one of those ones that it was a bit hot cold in the comments, and I was just a bit like, it's a risk. It could come in well. To be fair, even if I think it comes in well, it's probably around the 80 mark. It doesn't strike me as the one that's going to push to the mid high 80s. Now I could be wrong, but if it doesn't come in so well, you're probably looking at low 70s. So it was one I thought we'd leave it off.
Yeah, so I think the original release was 2007. So that's how far back you got to go. And if we look back to the old metrics, because OpenCritic wasn't around then, we go to Metacritic. It scored an 82 on PC. So not terrible, but that's a long time of inactivity, isn't it? I mean, they've been doing other things, the developers. Like, it's a franchise that has been on hiatus though for over a decade now. Interested to see how that pans out. I've played Metro this last year, which is heavily inspired by the original Stalker, and fucking love that game. So there's potential there. If they can get the same sort of vibe going and some good mechanics going, people will be loving that. But I'm interested to keep an eye on that because it's one that I personally am looking at playing. Paper, your man Adcock is next. The final game for the team members that are going to be putting games on your list for you. I've heard of this game. Okay, that's all I can say about it. I can't remember anything about it, but he's given you Tunic.
Tune. How do you spell that?
Tunic.
Oh, just like normal Tunic.
Yeah.
All right.
Again, coming in March, so we'll find out in this first quarter how the whole season's going to pan out. It seems, but it wasn't something I had ever considered being on a list, and for reference, no one else had it across their list. So, potentially 60 odd games there, and he's the only one who's picked it. And it was at number 4 of his entire list, so he wasn't. You'd have to scroll down to get that out of the bins. Like, that is low down.
You know what? Just quickly,
lovely little indie game.
That's what I'm saying. If you look down at games that you may like, if you like Tunic, just when you Google, it's like all those games that score mid to sort of low 80s in terms of those indie sort of gems that come up. So maybe he has pulled out one out the bag here that people have just ignored because it is one of those indie little gems that people don't cotton on until after it's popped up and then it's out there. It looks like it's going to be on Xbox as well, so whether that be on Game Pass, who knows? But Xbox and Steam, no PlayStation by the looks of it. So yeah, we'll see.
Any response to that, Parky? I'm assuming, like you, it wasn't on your list anywhere. But
no,
no,
I can't say I even looked at it. But this is what I'm saying: classic Adcock.
Yeah,
this could honestly, it could be a high 90s. You just don't know.
No,
or it could be a non-release, or pushback or whatever. But I'm not sad to see it go because I didn't know what it was.
Yeah,
but
that's the X factor that you can produce. Well,
yeah.
Well, that's the team part of the process over with. We're now going to revert back to Paper, who has the initiative. He's going to pick his 8th game on his list, and then we'll go to Parky, and we'll run through until we get to 10. So, Paper, all in your hands now. No more relying on other people. No more having to be scared about what might be popped on your list and what you might have to transfer out. This is all you now. What's going to be number 8 for your gaming team?
So I'm going to go for this one because I think if I don't, Parky may go for it.
Yeah,
it's a bit of, and he may not. It's a bit of a risky biscuit one, but it's one of those ones that if it comes out, it should do well.
I've already pasted it into the slot. I think I know what it is.
It was the one I thought he was going to say earlier when pulled out Pokemon, and so I was somewhat, I wasn't too sure which way it was going to go, but then I heard Parker's reaction when I said that, and I think he's thinking similar to me, so I'm going to Starfield.
Yeah, I already had it pasted in. It's Bethesda Game Studios, perhaps back to their best. That's what I'm hoping for. Huge pressure, well, not pressure, but definitely when the year starts heating up and we get past the February hype that we know and the March hype, all these fucking games, most of them were on these lists. When we start cranking up for the later half of the year, everyone's going to be talking about Starfield. Everyone. Mm-hmm. It's got a November 11th release date, which they announced E3 2021. So
wasn't that the release day of Elder Scrolls or Skyrim? Or something?
I think it was.
It means something to them.
That's it. Yeah. So I think it's 11 years after Skyrim potentially. Someone correct us, but there was a meaning behind that. 11th of the 11th, 2022. So they're, you just don't see release dates that specific so far out. Yeah. Are they sitting there just polishing up? Because one of the big things, even though people love Skyrim, is that their games release sometimes a bit buggy. What I would say about Bethesda Game Studios, or my view on them, is, in my opinion, they have not released a great game, and I'm talking great, since Skyrim. So it'll be 11 years by the time this comes out, because on their resume they've got Fallout 4, which was, I thought, okay, not as good as 3. Then they've got the stink of Fallout 76, which is a bit up in the air whether you want to blame them, because apparently it was outsourced to another studio within the Bethesda network, but they still slapped Bethesda Game Studios on it, and we all know how that ended. I think, Paper, you might have subbed that in 1 year, actually, much to your dismay.
I think that was the year I won as well. Yeah,
it still didn't terminally injure your team and put them down. And we've heard about Starfield a couple of years ago. They mentioned, they just showed like a little bit of like just the title basically, along with Elder Scrolls 6. But this is their next big bruising game. It's a sci-fi genre. It's not something they've done before. It's a brand new IP. I'm really looking forward to it, because I really do believe this is them getting back to form. But Paper, what's your thoughts then behind that one?
It's sat 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th on my list, but it's got in brackets next to big risk.
Right.
I think I probably wasn't going to pick it straight away, and I was going to leave it to my 10th pick. But then when I mentioned it earlier, and Parky said, I think I know what you mean. I think maybe it might be semi-high on his list, and he may have picked it therefore before me. I was hoping someone else would make the decision for me.
I'm surprised. I'm actually shocked it wasn't in anyone's team that high up. I mean, the person who had it highest, I'm just trying to skate through now.
I had it about 12.
So you got it quite low, fair enough. So Adcock had it at number 5 or 6? Adcock had it at number 5. That's the highest it was on anyone's list. So some people aren't drinking the same.
It's new IP as well, as you said, and they there's only so long that they can live off the Fallout and the Skyrim or the Elder Scrolls IPs, and they need a big game to keep them going for another 20 and 15, 10 to 15, 20 years. And this could be that game if they get it right. And I think they would know that. They need to get this next IP right if they want to continue moving forward.
Yeah, and don't forget, they're under the Microsoft umbrella now as well. And this is like the first big game coming out of Bethesda Game Studios. So with those resources, with that help, you'd think that will smooth out as many rough edges as it could be done possibly. This is a big game, not just for Bethesda, because really now it's Microsoft. This is now a Microsoft game because they own it. So it behooves them to release anything to it. It's coming day and date to Game Pass, like all the first party stuff is, and this could be a real statement. If this comes out to huge scores and is day and date on Game Pass, that is a magnificent get for them. But Parky, you said it's number 12, so potentially you weren't going to be jumping on this at any point in the next.
It's still not the game that I was talking about when Paper got Pokemon.
Interesting. Well, let's go straight to you, because you're next in line to pick your 8th game. Are we going to get that game now, or are you going to keep it close to your chest and play a risk and see if you can get it later on?
I'm going to keep that for now and try and get it later. I'm going to go for Gran Turismo 7 as a homage to Chappers.
Yes. Good effort. That's again coming March, so we will find out sooner rather than later how that will do. A return for the infamous driving franchise. So a lot of people trying to compare it to bloody Forza Horizon, which is an arcade game. This is although it's not a hardcore sim.
This is pure driving.
This is motor racing.
I think they're doing offline mode as well, so it would be a real throwback to just you sitting on your PlayStation playing Gran Turismo 3.
Yeah, it's one of Sony's big IPs, one of their big guns. Typically do reasonably well. They've had a bit of a wobble because they were doing things like Gran Turismo Sport and they were pissing around with the franchise a little bit. So I know that it's a little bit out of people's minds, but this is a numbered release,
this is the full-blooded
that's it.
Gran Turismo.
This isn't Gran Turismo Sport, Gran Turismo Light. So hoping for good things there for those that are into their motor racing. Paper, anywhere to be seen on that top 10 of yours, or was this dropped off? Another Sony first party, which we've got as number 1 and 2 basically as the top games.
No, it sits at roughly around number 10 on my ones that I think will score well. You can see how good Forza Horizon has been scoring recently, so there is a market for good racing games, and I think it'll be interesting. As I said, I think this will be somewhere in the 80s at least. If they do it well, you could be seeing those Forza Horizon sort of scores.
Well, I think if they give it to people that reviewed Forza Horizon, it'll score poorly. This needs to go to people that like motor racing.
It's a different type of gaming, yeah. If it goes to like the racing purists, they'll like high 80s, low 90s, yeah.
They start giving it to just, as I say, the nerds. That's why I call Forza Horizon Nerds' First Car Game. They won't get on with this. This is not slimmed down arcade racer in an open world. It's motorsport, motor racing, where the big boys show their credentials, not nerds. Paper, pick number 9.
I am going to go for the game that sits just above Gran Turismo in my list, and go for Stranger of Paradise, a Final Fantasy Origin.
Fuck me. Wow. Talk to me about this one, because I don't know, man.
Oh,
is that the one that they absolutely memed on the trailer because it was taking itself so seriously?
Oh, it's got a March release date. What is going on this year?
It's my view on it is that Final Fantasy games generally score relatively well. I just think it's an early-ish game coming out. I've got a few risky biscuits in my team, and I wanted a bit of a non-risky biscuit. I think it will be. I'd hope it would be around sort of the mid to low 80s.
Interesting. Very interesting. Parky, anywhere to be seen on your list?
It's in a cluster of games at the bottom.
Emergency fund.
Along with seafood, to be fair. that I would have gone through if all my picks were taken. So we're looking at like 20s on the list.
One of those ones. Interesting. Yeah. I'm not sure about this one. Like I didn't get to play the demo. I downloaded it, and like you said, it was memed out of existence almost because they kept saying the word chaos. We're going to hunt chaos, etc., etc. Then there's a video going around, and I think this is legit, where there's a conversation happening between two characters, and then the main character just like says something, walks off, and plays Limp Bizkit on like a music device. And I'm like, what is this? So I don't know.
I mean, I've got time for it. But...
Okay, well, absolutely. It seems like it's going to be a retelling of the first Final Fantasy, but in an action area. But Square can be hit and miss with some of the stuff they publish, but it has got the Final Fantasy Origin stapled onto it, so who knows? Parky, number 9 for you.
This is really tricky because I've got 3 or 4 games left that I think would do really well.
Right. This choice is having to be made.
I'm going to go for Ghostwire Tokyo.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Delayed out of existence again. One of the similar to Deathloop, one of the Bethesda published games developed by Tango Gameworks, who people know that I enjoyed the Evil Within, the 2 games they did, but coming to PS5 exclusively for a time period, even though Microsoft own the studio now. So it's one of those weird ones.
They call Bethesda.
Yeah, it looks crazy. I'll give it that. It looks like a very out there game, but let me know you're thinking. What are we doing here with Ghostwire Tokyo?
I'm doing with Ghostwire Tokyo with what I'm going to do with my last pick, because I don't think Paper's going to get it. These are the ones that I'll leave till later in the year to see if they do get delayed into 23.
Right.
And they'll be the ones that we sub out.
Yeah. Yeah. Hasn't been.
But if it releases, I think it'll be big.
Fair enough. Paper, Ghostwire Tokyo anywhere to be seen on any lists?
It was on my list last year.
Yep.
It got delayed, so I had it on my list again this year. Do I think it will score well? I don't know whether it will score like in the 90s, but I think it'll be a mid to low 80s game if it comes out. I think it's good. It's in the top 7 of my games. So yeah.
Fair enough. Paper number 10. Final pick. Make it count. Is how much of a dilemma have you got here? Are you within your system at the moment? Are you like, no, I know exactly what I'm going to get because I've got this game, high up on the list. Or have you got decisions like Parky's having to make?
I've sort of got a game that sits 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on my list, but I'm sort of somewhat talking myself out of it, which is never a good thing. And then the next game on my list is a real chancer, but I've got quite a few chancers already in my list, so potentially that could mean lots of subs. And that cost me last year the amount of subs, and so that's now playing on my mind. I think I'm probably going to try and risk it, and I will tell you the game that I've subbed. Well, I won't tell you until after Parker's pick. But, I will go for the risky biscuit game in hope that it pays off, but it might not.
Let's hear it then.
Splatoon 3.
Cool. Nintendo Bump City's open for here. Absolutely. Nintendo have got a lot in the pipeline that needs to be spoken about, so it could be one of those ones that appears late doors, potentially. But I guess the nearest kind of reference we've got is Splatoon 2, which released on the Switch and not the Wii U. Got itself a nice 83. What's the risk factor for this? Is it scoring or is it releasing? Is that what you're concerned about?
Releasing.
Okay. So you think if it comes out,
it would score well, but it's whether it's sitting on we believe it's a 2022 game.
Yeah.
If it does, it gets to the middle of the year and there's no in the Nintendo sort of conferences and there's no word of it, then it's being swapped out. But it's it's one of those ones that is between that, which was the risky biscuit, and that another one that was going to fall in March. I think let's risk it and keep the game going longer, right?
Parky, Splatoon anywhere to be seen? Are we
upset
about that?
I had it. I know it sounds silly, but I had it around Breath of the Wild too. Obviously, Breath of the Wild risky because of the release, and Splatoon the same thing.
Yeah.
So definitely on the radar, but I'd have to go 14 or 15 for that.
Fair enough. Let's hear it then. What's going to be your final pick, Parky? Decisions have been made. Another toughie coming up. And
it's big decisions because the two that are left, I think one of them will basically guarantee 84, 85. Right. I think the other one, if it comes out, will be 90s. And I think I'm going to risk it for the chocolate biscuit because my team can advise me later, I'm sure. And I'll go for Bayonetta 3.
Yeah. Back from the Dead that appeared last year because that had gone off the radar for a couple of years. Again, another Nintendo. Again, as I was saying, Nintendo have got like 3-4 games that could be out this year and have a massive year, but they're just keeping their cards close to their chest or perhaps struggling. But I mean, again, I think you're bang on with score wise. If it surfaces, we're looking at high 80s, perhaps into the 90s. Bayonetta 2, for example, sitting on a very, very good 91. And to get
I think if it releases, it's going to be probably. I mean, top 5 doesn't sound great, but when you think you've got Forbidden Horizon, Ragnarok, I think the Starfield will be 90s as well.
Yeah,
I think it'll be top 5 games of the year if it comes out.
There you go. Paper, Bayonetta need to be seen on lists. I mean, it's been on lists for the last few years simply because people were expecting it to come out and it never did. It was just radio silence. But was that enough to put you off potentially popping it on yours?
It is on my list. It's sitting about middle of my list. It's one of those ones that, as you said, it's a risky biscuit one, and I think the reason it probably sits more middle than higher up, because I was sort of having this dilemma before, is that it's been on list for so many years now that it's like is it actually going to come out? And I don't know enough about it in terms of its release date. That just makes me a bit unsure. But as I do agree, if it comes out, it's a high scoring game. I just needed a little bit more in the Googles to tell me that it was definitely a 2022 game.
I think last year they were teasing that it could possibly come out last year, which is what's given me a little bit of hope that it could be this year.
Yeah, it definitely went missing for several years. So it seems strange to kind of resurrect that conversation and not have it somewhat ready in the next 12 months. That's kind of like how I would
keep people hanging for another 3 years.
Yeah, exactly. So they must have maybe they got past a milestone that they were pleased with and thought, right, this is now on track. We fixed an issue, or it could be a number of things. But Nintendo really, when you start, if all these games come out and hit, they're going to be hard pressed to not walk away with platform of the year in some aspects, because they've got a lot of stuff that's potentially going to be.
I think PlayStation's already got that wrapped up, mate. If I'm honest,
maybe, but I mean, they could all be done and dusted by the summer. Who knows? That could be
September for Ragnarok, isn't it? Before,
well, we'll see. We'll see about that.
In Sony, we trust.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to read off the games that you've both got to confirm it, and so that people can scribble down their notes at home. Because I know they like to play along and all that stuff. They don't, but they should be. Bloody effort that gets put into it. Anyway, we've got Paper, which is Paper's Boys. We've got God of War Ragnarok, Elden Ring, the sequel to Breath of the Wild, stroke Breath of the Wild 2, whatever that manifests itself as, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Extraction, Uncharted Legacy of Thieves, Pokemon Legends Arceus, Tunic, Starfield, Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin, and Splatoon 3. And then Parky, hashtag sensational. That's correct, isn't it? Not sensation. It was sensational.
I'll send you the little clip where I got it from.
Oh, perfect. Maybe I'll try and splice it in. Horizon Forbidden West, Advanced Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp, Sifu, Total War, Warhammer 3, Destiny 2, The Witch Queen, Dying Light 2 Stay Human, Stalker 2, Gran Turismo 7, Ghostwire Tokyo, and Bayonetta 3. So competitive is what I'll say about that. Lots of early releases. So, this season is going to start with a bang. It's going to start in a matter of weeks and hopefully continue throughout the year. And we'll have hopefully both guys get 10 games out and it's actually a true battle. Because I always feel it's a little bit, not a cop-out because the game is to get 2 games, but it's always good to see 2 10-game rosters going head-to-head and seeing where people land. I want to come to you first, Paper. If you could just go through what you feel may be interesting games that have not made it onto your list. Feel free to keep whatever you like close to your chest in case of transfers or whatnot, but anything that's particularly interesting that you haven't picked for this time round.
So I guess the game that I was debating between Splatoon 3 and maybe the game that's going to come out was Babylon's Fall.
Right, yeah.
But it's just one of the ones that could not score very well.
Yeah.
The first thing you type in, the comments are like, it feels slow
in
comparison and lack. So I was like, I probably best to take a risk than go for that. There is some good games coming out this year that I think will do okay-ish. That if people had picked, I wouldn't have been too against things like the Hogwarts Legacy, the Lord of the Rings Gollum, Gotham Knights, Avatar, Kirby's and the Forgotten Land could score very well if it does well. And so that was one of the ones that I was potentially thinking was going to be there. Life is Strange Remastered is coming out this year if that gets a page. No one picked Saints Row, which I'm quite surprised at. Maybe everyone doesn't have any faith in it. And then I think that was sort of, there's a few more other ones there, but nothing else that probably stands out, maybe apart from the Guild Wars 2 expansion, but we all know that's not going to score very
well. It's interesting there's no sports games on here. Like you've got Gran Turismo, which is a sports, no yearly release sports games. I mean, there's no FIFA's, Football Manager's been ousted, NBA 2K seemingly on no one's list, so everyone's lost faith with that one. It just seems to score low 70s now, which is no good to anyone. So that's interesting to see. Parky, anything on your list that you've had to sacrifice and feel like perhaps could be scoring well, or any other interesting tidbits?
The annoying thing about the way these games are going to release is the one that I think will be 84, 85 that I've still got on my list is due out in the summer.
Right.
So all these ones that I'm hoping that come out in November, I'm gonna either have to decide in the summer or roll the dice for a later one.
Yeah.
So that's not great. But same as paper really. You got the likes of Hogwarts Legacy, Gotham Knights, Suicide Squad, Lego Star Wars, kind of ones that Gotham Knights and Suicide Squad I expect to do quite well. But Lego Star Wars, if I needed the mid to high 70s, maybe low 80s, I'd have put that in.
Yep.
Yeah, I think of my top 15 games, only 2 didn't get picked.
Okay.
So, yeah, there's the one that I don't know about, but it's on my list is Mario and Rabbids.
Yes. Yep.
It's like I don't know how well that's going to do because Bowser's Fury done a lot better than I thought it was going to. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get the old Mario.
I don't think it's got a release date though.
No, it hasn't.
I think
but
it's one of those classic 2022s. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I mean it's the sequel to Kingdom Battle, Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle, and
that done well.
85, yeah, which wasn't expected because normally when Nintendo don't typically hand out their IPs to other areas, but they've obviously got a relationship with Ubisoft who did that one, and will be following up with this one as well. So that's certainly one that is on the Grand Prix in various bits and pieces and will appear.
The other one that I had quite an eye on was Redfall.
Yes,
which was is Arcane again. I think they made Deathloop.
Yes,
so I thought that might be all right, but it's not. I don't think it's going to do as well as the ones I picked.
No, the thing that concerns about Redfall is it looks like it's going to be a looter shooter, perhaps a live service game, which Arcane aren't renowned for. Going on Game Pass as well, so does that make we'll just chuck it out, doesn't matter, jobby? That sometimes could be a mentality, I don't know. So that's definitely one that's I've got a bit of an asterisk by as to whether to definitely keep an eye on, but I've got a feeling it might not quite hit the heights of a Deathloop, for example, but we'll find out in the summer, I guess. So that's you guys done with, so thanks for doing that. That's obviously taxing, isn't it, mentally? I bet you both need a nap now for the afternoon. Everything's in place. We've done the team names. We've done the grid itself, and that's where we need to be. I'm going to go through the Grand Prix just quickly. We won't stop and talk about every game, but I wanted to give you guys an insight as to how that had panned out, and maybe get quick thoughts on who's in a good position, who's in a bad position. So, like I said, the order had to be rejigged due to deadlines being missed. So, Mr. Salmon, in his first ever Grand Prix, gets top spot. So he's ended up with Total War, Warhammer 3, Breath of the Wild 2, Stalker 2, Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin, Shovel Knight Dig, Grid Legends, Company of Heroes 3, Warhammer 40k Darktide, Arc 2, and Hollow Knight Silksong. We've then got Mr. Biff in number 2, who has got Horizon Forbidden West, Sifu, Dying Light 2 Stay Human, Persona 4 Arena Ultimax, Lord of the Rings Gollum, Stray, Ollie World, Hogwarts Legacy, Dynasty Warriors 9 Empires, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. Adkins in number 3 ends up with Elden Ring, Uncharted Legacy of Thieves, Saints Row, Bayonetta 3, Diablo 4, Forspoken, Mario plus Rabbids Spark of Hope, Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, and Triangle Strategy. Then we have Adcock in number 4 that ends up with Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Extraction, Tunic, Starfield, FIFA 23, the next mainline COD entry, Monarch, Tiny Tina's Wonderland, Ghostwire Tokyo, Kaiju Wars, and Have a Nice Death. We then have Logan in number 5 position, God of War Ragnarok, Pokemon Legends Arceus, Football Manager 2023, so he's got it on there, Splatoon 3, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, Gran Turismo 7, Gotham Knights, Redfall, and then 2 blanks. He did not have enough games to fulfill the 10 games. He ran out. So that change in grid spot has undoubtedly hurt him there. That has knocked him out. He will now be forced to... He didn't have to make 2 subs, but...
That was a strong list until then as well.
Yeah.
I was surprised considering he went 5th and he got, God of War Ragnarok. And in his 5th pick, he got Gran Turismo 7.
no.
I was like, bloody...
Yeah. That's
just everyone's overlooked that.
Yeah, it has been. I don't think it's even in. It's in like maybe 1 or 2 other lists in total. But yeah, he's. It's not the death knell because it's 5-point penalty. Last year we kind of forced people to put 10 games in. Like we'd say you'd get an extra point penalty and tell them they were in for blanks. This year just kind of reverted back to if you want to send a list that doesn't make it, that's up to you. They need to provide at least 20 games to at least show they've tried and put some thought into it. And he's one of the unfortunate ones. But that's what happens when you try and get a lean list out there. It doesn't always pay off. Mr. Hall bumped from 3rd or 4th down to 6th. He's now the last person in the grid. He ends up with Advance Wars reboot like we spoke about earlier. Destiny 2, The Witch Queen. Life is Strange Remastered Collection. Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake. No one wanted to touch that of a barge pole this year. Babylon's Fall. Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. Cuphead, The Delicious Last Course. Slime Rancher 2. Kerbal Space Program 2. And Madden 23. So he's got 10 games out at least. He actually submitted the second most games in there. Adkins submitted the most. He gave us a nice list of 29 games, so always appreciated. Well, we won't dissect each of those individually, but
I think I'd have won it this year.
What's that? Sorry,
I think I'd have won the Grand Prix this year.
Yeah,
I don't think they've got good games, but I don't think it's a strong 10.
Cool. Crapping on the lowers.
I don't know. I feel Krog, out of everyone, I know he didn't finish his, but he's got the best 8 games.
Yeah,
like
that was the strongest.
If he'd got 2 more in there, I'd been like, he should be not. Well, things can change, but like,
he's going to pick Football Manager. No one else is going to pick Football Manager. Put it like 20th on your list and get some other games because you're going to get it.
Not necessarily though, because it
always
was me. No, I was thinking about it. I should have put it on my list.
It's almost like Krog's IP, mate. It's his to pick.
Yeah,
but I'd be like Hall with Advanced War, whatever it was.
Yeah.
I would have put that lower, knowing that other people aren't going to go for it.
Yeah,
but that's just me.
Yeah, I agree. I think Krog is so good, but everyone else is like it should be a battle. I think with everyone else. There's no sort of real standouts. I don't think this year because Krog has missed those 2 games. It puts him it could put him in a bit of an advantage that he's got sort of 2 transfers. They can just be like, right, I know this has been missed and I know this has been missed. Stick it in. It's going to score well.
Yeah. I mean, it's all to play for certain. Remember, Adkins started off with 4 blanks one year and got very close to winning it still because the trouble with committing games and having them on your list is if they come out before a transfer window and they score shit, you're stuck with that score and you can't really adjust if something goes wrong. Whereas having the blank there, you can bide your time. Something will pop up at E3, that will come later in the year that you can jump on and you're in a good position. You haven't got to feel like you're sacrificing anything. You kind of can't lose at that stage. So there's certainly not the death knell that it potentially is. People who are inexperienced at the game might think. But go on then, Paper. If you've got to put your money on one horse, which horse are you backing?
I think it's the year of the Krog. He's even with the 2 blanks. I think the 2 blanks gives him the opportunity to transfer some stuff in that has been missed off those lists because there is things that has been missed that will score well and he can get those in probably first without worrying about transferring something else out and getting some to score. So I'm going to go Krog this year. Krog for the victory.
Krog for the win. Parky, who are you backing?
It was Krog right up until 2 blanks. Sneaking suspicion that Adkins is going to do well this year.
Oh, he's always. It feels like it's his destiny to win it, but he never has. There's always something that goes wrong during the year for him. So, you're going for Adkins, Paper going for Krog. Interesting that both of those players are on Paper's team. So doesn't Parky not thinking much of the Halls, the Biffs, and the Salmons for their Grand Prix efforts, but Paper potentially could have a Grand Prix winner in amongst his little team there. So all that bolsters his chances. We will find out later on for 2022. Chaps, as I said, thank you for joining me for this year. I wish you both the best of luck. I hope it's close. I hope it's good. And I hope you two don't end up rolling around on the floor fighting in that casino where we inevitably have a drink up in December of 2022. But nothing more for us to say here, though, other than thanks for your time and ta-da.
This was a Dimp Digital production.